While we
Morning. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, Dr. for sparing us your time this morning. Now, can you tell me in terms of, I know you deal a lot with injuries and obviously the general well-being and wellness of players. We've had such a long break with people not really active in terms of competitive games. What are the risks to injury when they resume?
I think when we're looking at our more professional athletes like Collins and Mercy, they normally have a very structured program, and I'm sure they would not have gone through a complete downtime, and they would have maintained their base fitness. I would look at the injuries that sports people suffer in two categories: either being underprepared, which is not normally what happens in the pre-season, or towards the end of the season when there's fatigue setting into the system. I think the situation we find ourselves in is a new arena where people have been partly fit and it's not quite a pre-season. So I think we'll all be experiencing a new set of problems and injuries.
Okay, and staying with injuries, when you have attended to injured players or athletes, what kind of recovery program do you recommend, diet and so on?
That's a good question. When we initially see injured athletes, most frequently the most important person in their rehabilitation is going to be a really good physiotherapist. Thankfully, not all these injuries end up on the surgeon's table. And obviously it depends on the exact injury, but there's a lot of rehabilitation with good sports physiotherapists that comes into play. And obviously part of that is good diet and lifestyle choices as well.
And what sort of common injuries do you tend to see or to attend to?
So the most frequent injuries I deal with are knee injuries and shoulder injuries. They tend to be common towards the beginning of the season when people are not fully fit, and also towards the end of the season when fatigue has set in. Interestingly, around the corona virus, a lot of Kenyans and people in Nairobi have taken up exercising. So we've seen a whole raft of injuries from people who effectively have gone from not being very active to suddenly boosting the amount of activity they're taking, which of course is a positive, but in excess, we've seen a lot of soft tissue and tendon injuries.
What's the problem there? Is it that they've come on too quickly, or or have gone into vigorous?
Sorry, just I didn't catch that.
I'm saying, what has led to these sort of injuries that you talk about for people who are beginning to exercise quite a bit? What's the issue there?
So I'm not sure I got you, but I think you're asking what has led to the increase in injuries we've seen around.
Yes.
Right. I think it's a sudden change in activity. Unfortunately, not enough of us are as active as we should be, and that has obviously been as a function of very busy lifestyles and the space that the lockdown and change in working habits has afforded us has allowed a lot of people to start exercising, which, like I said, is a positive. But obviously, too much too soon has led to a number of injuries, and the main type of injury you'd see sort of overuse injuries where you're slightly overweight, not done any running. You suddenly go and start trying to do 20K that you used to do as a young woman or man, and you often find you have inflamed tendons and you could stumble, and certainly we've seen a fair few injuries in this period.
So what's your advice to people who want to resume vigorous physical activity in terms of getting back safely?
Sorry, Joseph, the sound is a bit poor.
Oh, okay.
I didn't catch your last question.
I'll speak, yeah. So what's your advice to people who would like to resume rigorous physical activity, to do it safely?
Thanks, I got that. So my advice is start slow, start gentle, and be aware of your current fitness level. There's no shame in starting with just a gentle walk, then building slowly, building up from that gently. And for those who are in a position to do so, having someone to help you with the training is a positive. But I think the key message is go slow, definitely factor in rests and stretching, both before and after these exercises.
And when recovering from an injury, how soon before someone can get back onto the track or onto the field?
That's a good question, and the simple answer is it really does depend on what the injury was and the severity of that. So it's extremely varied. You know, if you have a simple sprain of your calf muscle, you might be able to get back in 2 to 4 weeks. Whereas if you've gone and ruptured a ligament during this process, it could be the best part of a year before you're able to get back. So obviously, it's important to get professional advice and get the right diagnosis, and that way you can tailor your recovery safely.
And for you, what's the most challenging aspect of dealing with, injured athletes and sports people?
I think the most challenging aspect is impatience. Sports people want to get back yesterday. So it's about having a program that both respects the science of recovery, but at the same time takes into account the athlete's desire and sometimes financial needs to get back on the pitch. So each has to be dealt with on an individual basis. And apart from the frustration, I guess the other difficulty we normally see is access to the best healthcare. I think healthcare is still quite expensive, and not all the athletes are able to access the best care. That's something I think we all need to continue working on.
And maybe one last one just before we move on to something else. With COVID-19, how has that changed the way, the nature of your work? How has your world changed as you attend to, people who are injured and so on?
That's a very good question, and I don't think we have all the answers yet. This is still a process in evolution. On the one hand, certainly, there are not that many people that come through for more trivial injuries, which is a positive. Sometimes you just need to give your injury a bit of time to settle down. On the other side of it, I think it's exploring new ways of communicating and contacting people who require assistance. And I think the next frontier is going to be telemedicine, which has already started, but we'll need to push that on both as a society and also as a medical professional.
Okay, Dr. thank you so much. Stay with us for a moment as I look at what else is going on in our sporting world. Now, sports people in Kenya will have to wait a little longer to return to action, with the Ministry of Health revealing that they are working on a protocol alongside the Ministry of Sports that will see a safe return of sporting activities. Now, sports has been one of the sectors affected by COVID-19 pandemic shutdown.
Regarding protocols for our athletes and sportsmen, with the relaxation of these protocols in many of the other countries. These are matters that are continuously being looked at, because it is not only in the sporting arena, but also in the other economic activities, whether it is an economic activity or whether it's a sporting activity. And I am sure that there are considerations in determining what kind of measures can be put in place to begin sports, prepare our sportsmen to participate in their vocation. There will be, I think the approach we look at, one, is it our domestic sporting activities, or are we looking at allowing some of our renowned athletes to be able to participate in international meets? I think these issues are being looked at in conjunction with the sports ministry, and some form of a solution will be developed, particularly for those external meets where we want our renowned athletes to participate in.
Okay, so to look at sports reopening and what that will mean, the kind of protocols that are being mentioned there, I'm joined, first of all, we've heard from Dr. Mordecai Atinga. I've also got my colleague here, Celestine Olilo from the Daily Nation Sports Desk. We are also joined by Joshua Makori, who is in our fifth floor newsroom studio. We'll also be linking up with Robert Madoi, who is the NTV Uganda sports editor. I'll also be joined here in our conversation by Collins Injera, who's a Kenya Rugby Sevens player. Also Edith Wissa, who's Malkia Strikers player. Philadelphia Orlando will be joining us, the Kenya Lioness captain, as well as Eunice Sum, who is the former 800 meters world champion, who will be joining us from Eldoret to share her experiences. Also, Fidel Maithia, who is a colleague, a basketball player, a radio producer, who will also be sharing with us his thoughts on the world of sports, especially basketball. First of all, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Celeste, for the next interview. Good morning and welcome to your world.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for that very warm welcome. We had very good thoughts from Mordecai. I don't know if you have Kolo on the line, Collins Injera, the Kenya Rugby Sevens player. Can you hear me, Kolo?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. So are you back in training now that the partial lockdown is finally coming out to an end and things are easing up now?
I can say not really full back into it. Just a few, just trying to stay active, working on the things that maybe I was still working on. Probably if just want to improve on the upper body strength, the lower body strength, just the little things that maybe the work-ons, I'd call them the work-ons, I wouldn't call them weaknesses. But I'll just say, just doing on the work-ons that are needed.
Yeah, and myself and my colleague Joseph, we've been working from home sometimes. And I'm sure that you've been also working from home, doing a little bit of fitness training and maybe just keeping fit ahead of the resumption of the season. How hard has this been for you?
Definitely very difficult because, as you know, when the lockdown happened, we were right in the middle of the season, and by then the body was used to doing all these high intensity workouts. And I think after when we were told we have to stay home and work from home, it was a bit difficult. Of course, missing those intensity sessions, the space that's needed probably in working out. So we just had to adjust. And probably that's what I'm saying. You just had to keep active, work on the weaknesses, the things that you are used to do. Right now, you cannot do them because of the space, because we are a team sport. Most of the things that we usually do and usually train on, we usually have a partner or usually train with the other people. So at this time when you're alone, it's quite difficult, and it's a bit more of mental toughness than even the physical bit. So we just had to adjust and working on them.
And I'm sure since you're a very experienced athlete and you've been in this game for a very long time, and I'm sure you understand that certain things will change forever. I don't know, what major changes do you expect as we now start to come back or start even thinking about coming back into active rugby? What are some of these changes that you think are going to happen that are going to revolutionize sport in this country and in the world as a whole?
At the moment, as you know, there are so many changes that have happened in terms of the rugby world. You can see when the Super Rugby resumed in New Zealand, you can see they've reduced the amount of time that the ball stays in the rack. So definitely, I think there's going to be more changes. Just speculating because of the social distance aspect. We don't know how training is going to be handled. In terms of just making sure that our equipments are clean in terms of training, because if we have a ball, it's going to be touched by around at least 16 people or so. So I think for us, there'll be a lot of changes in terms of just getting back into training and just trying to adjust in the sporting world.
And just talking about the Olympics, because that was the major sporting event that was meant to happen this year. I don't know where this coronavirus pandemic and the fact that we postponed so many things, where does this leave you in your quest to make a shot at the Olympics with the national team?
Definitely, it was a tough news. It was tough news when we heard that the Olympics had to be postponed till next year. As you know, many of the athletes, they were working towards the Olympic happening this year, and many of us probably wanted to retire after the Olympics. But just it being pushed to 2021. You just have to refocus the goals, readjust the system, and see how we are going to make sure that we will be able to reach 2021. Definitely very difficult. Like I said, many of the athletes have, had put all into it in terms of just making it to the Olympics in 2020. But I think all we understand it has to be safety first, and I think all we have to do now is just refocus the goals, make sure that our mental preparedness it's up to par, and just work towards it. I mean, that's the sports life. Sometimes you get disappointed, but you just have to pick yourself up and keep moving.
And you seem so excited to come back to the pitch. You know what's going on with social distancing rules and the fact that we haven't still quite managed this disease, even here on the home front. If we come back to rugby and we have this domestic leg and the domestic league running, are you scared for your family that you might actually contract this virus while at the pitch? Because I know you have a young family. Is this something that you worry about when you think about resuming rugby?
Definitely, there are a little bit of things that I think needed to be sorted out before we even start resuming, because, you know, for us, it's not fully professional. So if you say that we're resuming next week, and you'll find a guy coming all the way from Rongai, the other guy coming all the way maybe from Kikuyu, they're using public transport. By the time they get to the field, we can't be testing people every day. So I think it's going to be very challenging, just in terms of social distancing as well, because our game is contact sport. Of course, very worried. You might resume and then you contract the disease, bring it back home. And there's just a lot of things that I think need to be taken into consideration before we decide to resume. I don't know if we'll have to do testings. There's just a lot of questions that are hanging in there. But hopefully the rugby union will be able to, and when the sporting world and the Ministry of Health will be able to reopen the sporting doors, I think we'll have to have some very good solutions just in terms of us getting back into the system. Like I said, we are coming from very different directions. You don't know where the person has been, where the person has slept. So it's going to be difficult, but definitely looking forward to it.
Thanks, Kolo. I still have a couple of questions for you, but my colleague Joseph has a very interesting question for you.
Hi, Collins. I love food, and I'm wondering whether your diet has changed when you're stuck at home.
To be honest, yes, it has changed a bit. Like I said, it's very difficult to actually just trying to maintain the diet. Well, you don't know the answer. It's very uncertain when you're going back into the field. So at some point, you'll just wake up craving some junk food, and it's very difficult for you to try and avoid it. So you just go for it. Like I said, the uncertainty is the biggest thing for us. Just not knowing when you're going back is the big thing. Even for the training sessions, you can't really go all out and have those intensive sessions because you don't know when you're going back. You might be having those, I think, intensive sessions, but when you get back, by the time you do the preseason and all, because at this time the fitness level have already dropped, it's all natural. But I think when you resume and start doing the preseason, and you've been doing all these intensive exercises during the lockdown, I think there's a higher risk of getting burnout.
Okay. Even
before the season starts. So for us, I think for me, all I'm doing is just trying to stay active, working on those little muscle groups. And of course, the diet is a bit difficult, but we are managing.
Okay. Now let me bring in Makori, who has a much more serious question.
Injera, nikikuangalia hivi kwamba kumekuwa na hii homa ya corona, na katika hiki kipindi kocha mkuu wa timu ya taifa raga wachezaji 7 kila upande Paul Finney ameondoka katika majukumu yake makuu ya kuwanoa ninyi. Nini kauli yako kwa kuondoka kwa kocha mkuu Paul Finney?
Kuondoka kwake ningesema hiyo ni decision ambayo union ilichukua. Of course walikuwa na reason zao. Kama mnavyojua, nikidhani Paul Finney alikuwa na contract hadi Olympics 2020. Hapo ndio contract yake, kandarasi yake ingeweza kuisha, lakini kama mnavyojua Olympics imesongezwa huko mbele, na nikidhani ilikuwa mutual agreement between the two, between rugby union na Paul Finney, na ameweza kuondoka. Ndio angeweza kuachieve kile ambacho alikuwa ameweka kuachieve, but kile ambacho ningependa kumshukuru ni aliweza kuexpose players wengi kwa ile high level ya rugby ambayo tunacheza kule nje, na ni vizuri sasa kwamba wachezaji wengi wameweza kupata ile exposure kule nje. Na of course tukiweza resume mazoezi yetu, ni vizuri kwamba kila mtu ameweza kuonja the level of competition that's out there.
Alafu ukiangalia itakuwa ni miaka 5 tangu mshiriki michuano ya Olimpiki iliyokuwa kule Rio mwaka 2016. Hiki kipindi kimekuaje, na katika harakati ya kuyaboresha matokeo yenu tutapoenda katika makala yajayo ya mwaka 2021 kule Tokyo, Japan?
Nikisema kipindi kimekuwa na milima na mabonde. Kama mnavyojua, kuna wakati tuliweza kucheza vizuri, tena kuna wakati wengine tumeweza kuhangaika na matokeo yetu. Na kama sasa vile ulivyosema, tulikuwa tumefocus miaka 4 kutoka ile mchezo ya Rio ya 2016, lakini sasa just have to refocus na tuweze kuangalia mbele, tungoje mwaka ujao tuweze kuona vile tunaweza perform. Lakini I think pia ni vizuri imefanyika vile imefanyika. Sasa tuko na wakati mwingi wa kuweza kuprepare team ambayo inaweza kwenda kwa mchezo wa Olimpiki na kupigania ile medali.
Injera, ukiangalia katika ufungaji wa try duniani, wewe ni nafasi ya 2 na hapa Kenya wewe ndio bora kabisa. Hasa unapanga kufanyeje kabla ustaafu?
Kusema kweli, hilo ni jambo ambalo niliacha kuifikiria kitambo sana. I think kabla nistaafu, kile ambacho ningependa kufanya ni kuweza kushare hii knowledge ambayo nimekuwa nikiokota hizi miaka zote tangu nilipoanza kucheza I think mwaka 2007. Na I think the experience ambayo nimeweza kupata na ile knowledge ambayo nimeweza kupata, I think kile ambacho ningependa kufanya kabla nistaafu niweze kushare na hawa vijana wadogo ambao wanakuja, vijana barubaru ambao wanakuja katika mchezo huu ambao wana grow, na just being in the sporting industry and just giving back. I think hiyo ndio kitu ambacho ningependa kufanya. Mambo ya tries ilifanyika na yes, mimi bado ni wa pili pale juu. Of course ningependa kuongezea, but at the moment ningesema hiyo sio main focus yangu, but main focus yangu ni ku make sure hao vijana wadogo ambao wanakuja through the system pia hao waweze ku realize their dreams na pia waweze kuelewa mchezo huu na kuweza kucheza katika level hiyo. Na nikifanya hivyo niko sure pia hao wataweza kuipitisha kwa vijana ambao wanakuja next, na tukiendelea hivyo tunaendelea kujenga team nzuri.
Alafu swali langu la mwisho Injera ni kwamba ligi ya dunia imesitishwa hapa na pale na kuahirishwa kwa mikondo kadhaa kwa sababu ya homa ya corona. Hili umelipokeaje, ikiwa kwamba pia nyinyi katika hii hali ya homa ya corona mnajiandaa kurejelewa kwa ligi hiyo?
Hebu rudia swali tena.
Katika ligi ya dunia imeahirishwa mikondo kadhaa kwa sababu ya homa ya corona, na nyinyi katika hiyo ligi ya dunia mmekuwa kule na mnafanya vizuri katika huu msimu kuhakikisha kwamba mnamaliza katika nafasi nzuri. Ni kipindi utakisemaje katika ligi ya dunia kabla hata kuahirishwa?
Kile ambacho ningesema, kama unavyojua tulikuwa tunajaribu combinations mingi kwa team, na hiyo pia risk ya hiyo kwamba ni matokeo saa zingine yatakuwa nzuri, saa zingine yatakuwa mbaya. Na kama unavyojua tulikuwa tumemaliza ligi hiyo, tulikuwa kwa nafasi ya 12 na I think one of our main goals ilikuwa expose as many players as we can kabla tuende kwa ile mchezo wa Olimpiki, na tulikuwa tunaendelea vizuri. Mkondo ambao ulikuwa unakuja wa Hong Kong ndio ilikuwa mkondo ambayo kocha angeweza kuchagua wachezaji bora, wale ambao anaona wanaweza kuenda na kucompete kule Tokyo na kuleta medali, lakini iliweza kuhairishwa. Kwa sasa tunangoja kusikia kama bado itaendelea ama itahairishwa. Bado hawajaamua vile hiyo World Rugby Board hajaamua kama michezo ya London itakuwa ama ile ya Hong Kong itakuwa baadaye. Sasa kile ambacho tunangoja sasa ni kungoja, na kama ulivyosema wakati michezo yatafunguliwa hapa Kenya tutajua kama tutaendelea kucheza pre-season na kufanya ile mazoezi tukingojea tumalize ligi ambayo tulikuwa tumeanza. But kile ambacho nasema sasa, hiyo kutojua wakati ligi itaresume ndo shida kubwa ambayo tuko nayo.
Basi mimi kutoka hapa studio hapa, mimi kuita studio hapa 5th floor, ikiwa ni chumba cha habari kwa sasa. Celestine pale studio juu aendelee.
Asante sana Makori. Thank you very much Makori for that good interview. And Kolo, I've had my colleague ask you a tricky question about retirement, but before we talk about retirement, I'd also like to ask you about the stimulus package that was released to athletes just a few weeks ago from the Ministry of Sports. It was 10,000, was meant to cover the loss of income and the suffering that most athletes and players are going through right now because there are no sporting activities. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think this was the best way to do it? Was this the most effective way to approach it such that all athletes benefit from this?
I'd say, of course, as you know, many of the athletes have lost their source of income, and many of them were really depending on the sporting world. And I think the Ministry of Sports just coming in and trying to make sure that they give the athletes a little bit of buffer. Yes, I'd say it's a good thing that they came in and trying just to spread the money across all sporting disciplines, because you know there are so many sporting disciplines and so many sportsmen and women out here. So I think for them just trying to settle on that amount, of course, I'd say it's something nice, at least for the athlete to feel appreciated. Of course, not enough, as you know, the economy is a bit tough and things now are very tough. Yes, not enough, but I think what I'd like to urge, I think the ministry is just trying to look at it. I think there's a bit of sports fund, but I think it's very disheartening for the athletes when you're an athlete and you're a sportsman.
That would be really devastating.
In this country, and then you hear that the money, some money has been taken from the sports ministry or sports fund, given to other industries. I know, of course, even other industries have to survive, but I think first priority of the ministry should be the sportsmen and women.
Absolutely.
But when you hear that the money has been taken, going to buffer something else, maybe entertainment industry, I understand even them, they're a bit struggling. But I think first priority should be home. And I think
absolutely, and I think that issue of how we are using the sports fund is something that we have to talk about next time. Thank you so much, Kolo, for joining us. I know you're rushing back somewhere. Thank you for the time that you've spent with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Sarah. So as you go, I just want to ask Mordecai, the doctor, one more question. I heard you earlier on in your interview with Joseph talking about how most athletes are failing to afford the medical bills. They cannot get the medical care that they actually need, quality medical care to help them get through the whole issue of healing and recovery and physiotherapy and all those things that are needed. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Who should pay for players' or athletes' bills? Should it be the player themselves from their own personal resources, or should it be the clubs that actually own them, the clubs that they play for, the employees, so to speak? Who should pay for these bills? Dr. Mordecai, can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you. Sorry. I'm just saying you've thrown me a bit of a curveball there. That's a bit of a tough question. I think the clubs should take on the mantle and probably pay the lion's share of their hospital bills. A lot of these players are young guys and will be of a lower profile than some of our more well-known professionals, and they need all the support they can get. And I also would think that these are the kind of guys that and girls that we need to support with NHIF as much as possible. So I think a combination between the clubs they play for and the NHIF should really cover their bills. And it's a shame to have promising athletes miss out because of injuries that could have been treated.
Absolutely. I hope that someday that you will be able to write and present a proposal so that you can drum this into the minds and hearts of the club administrators and the football administrators or sport administrators in this country, such that all athletes can afford to get quality medical care once they get injured on the field of play. Thank you so much, Mordecai, for spending time with us. I'm going to throw it back to Joseph as we head into the next segment.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Celestine and Makori. Now, remember, today we are looking at how sports can come back fully and safely. What are your thoughts on that? And with the return of football, especially EPL and so on, who's in charge of the remote in your house? How have you reorganized your sitting room? What are the TV wars like? I would like to hear your comments on our hashtag #NewNormal. But before all of that,
I don't know. I thought that after the coronavirus, then Arsenal would come back rejuvenated and reincarnated. It looks like not really happening. But I think those results are to be expected because players are coming in from a long period of inactivity, and many of them are rusty in terms of fitness and everything. And then there's also the whole issue of social distancing and isolation, and they're scared for their families as well because they don't want to come into the pitch and then have to live with the coronavirus. The other issue, remember, they're playing within closed doors. There are no fans. There's no fun atmosphere. And you know, the fan is a 12th player. He brings in some sort of punch and excitement and aura in the field that actually pushes players to be extraordinary beings on the pitch, and they do not have that now. So they have to find a way of living this new normal, yeah, and before they actually catch up to that, it's going to be a while. So for me, these results are to be expected.
Asante. Makori, pia nakuuliza maoni yako kuhusiana na michezo hii hivi karibuni. Sijui inaonyesha kama kwamba virusi vya corona vimeathiri pia kiwango cha michezo.
Endo kwa kiasi kikubwa kuna athari ambayo inajitokeza hapo. Ukiangalia wachezaji wako katika ubora wao, ndo wamekaa katika siku 100, hakuna mchezo, nafanya mazoezi nyumbani, labda wengine hata wafanyi mazoezi nyumbani. Manake sio kila mtu anapenda kupiga mazoezi. Kuna wale wakulazimishwa akiwa anaona coach pale, lakini akiwa peke yake hataki kwenda mazoezi. Yani inakuwa kwamba kuna athari ambayo imetokea kwamba hii homa ya corona imechanganya kila kitu. Lakini ukiangalia katika mechi ambayo Liverpool walihitaji Arsenal iwasaidie kwamba ipige Manchester City, angalau pengo la alama kati yao katika kule kunyakua taji liwe ni alama 3 tu, na hizo alama 3 wazipate katika kule Goodison Park, uwanja wa watani wao wa jadi wa Merseyside ambao ni Everton. Lakini sasa tena imesalia kwamba ni alama 6. Lakini hapana neno, kiukweli ni kwamba Arteta alishindwa kabisa kumfunga ambaye alikuwa ni mwalimu wake mkuu Pep Guardiola. Na Guardiola anajua fika kwamba hawezi kwenda ligi ya mabingwa Ulaya iwapo yale marufuku yao ya ambayo waliwekewa, na iwapo watu washinda ile rufaa, kwa hiyo watu waenda ligi ya mabingwa Ulaya. Wanaweza kumaliza nafasi ya pili na wasiende ligi ya mabingwa Ulaya, iko kwamba aliyemaliza katika nafasi ya 5 anaingia katika kwenda ligi ya mabingwa Ulaya msimu ujao. Na lakini kuangalia tu kiujumla ni kwamba hata kule Ujerumani ligi ndo inatamatika na ilikuwa ndo ligi ya kwanza kurejelewa, na Bayern Munich tayari amelinyakua taji na ni taji lake la 8 katika historia, na ni mfululizo amekuwa kilitawala. Na naona Jumatano usiku walishindwa hawa Borussia Dortmund, walifungwa 2-0 na Mainz. Inaonesha dhahiri kwamba Mainz anataka ajikwamue asishuke daraja, na Borussia Dortmund licha ya kwamba wameshindwa wana uwezo mkubwa kabisa kumaliza katika nafasi ya pili. Lakini kujibu swali lako ni kwamba athari ya homa ya corona inajitokeza dhahiri kwamba kwa kiasi fulani kuna uzembe ambao unatokea.
Na sasa Makori, mwisho pengine kwa hilo, umuhimu wa mashabiki uwanjani.
Wajua shabiki ni mchezaji 12 akiwa uwanjani, na sasa hili pia linaleta athari yake kwamba ule motisha haupo uwanjani. Angalia kwamba Bayern Munich anashinda taji bila mashabiki uwanjani, na ingalikuwa kwamba mshabiki alikuwa uwanjani ama mashabiki walikuwa uwanjani, ingekuwa yani ina joto la aina fulani, joto la kuonesha kwamba sisi tumeshinda taji, kule kusherehekea pamoja kunaridhisha. Lakini sasa kwamba unashinda taji hamna mashabiki, ndio Liverpool watanyakua taji, lakini ikawa kwamba hawatosherehekea na mashabiki wao katika mechi yao labda ya mwisho ya kupewa kikombe. Lakini kocha mkuu Pep Guardiola, sio Pep Guardiola kumradhi, Pep Guardiola ni wa Manchester City, huyo Jurgen Klopp amesema kwamba liwalo na liwe, yawayo na yawe, msimu ishe, msimu mpya tutakapoanza ina neno, lakini wakati kutaruhusiwa kwamba watu watagusane, watu watangamane, watafanya sherehe kule katika mji wa Liverpool kwa vyovyote. Lakini shabiki ni muhimu akiwa uwanjani.
Asante, nikusahihishe Makori, tutafanya sherehe.
Hata mimi nitafanya sherehe, manake pia mimi nilikwenda kwa mkopo.
Asante sana. Celestine, over to you. You've got another guest to speak to. Yeah, Philo.
Hello, Phila, can you hear me, Phila?
Can hear you.
Sorry for keeping you waiting for so long. I don't know, how is your morning today?
Bit busy, but I can spare my time, no problem.
Do you like it more now that you don't have to wake up so early to go to the field to do your team training with the team?
No, it's a bit crazy because that was my daily routine. I'd got used to waking up very early going for my exercise. Actually, I wake up very early in the morning to do my morning run. So it's a bit challenging, but we just manage it because there's nothing you can do at the end of the day. So
are you doing some personal training back home?
Yeah, I'm actually working out. Our strength and conditioning coach has been following our workouts. So like you have to do daily exercise, but it's home workout. You can do morning run, and if you got a big space or a little space, you can do squat jumps, wall sit. So there are many home workouts you can do.
And last year was a very good year for the Lionesses. And I know that you and your team were really looking forward to this new season, and this year, especially with the qualifiers coming up, and there were so many tournaments that you were supposed to go to, and all those have now been cancelled. Where does that leave you as a Kenya Lioness team captain?
It's on the first day we had that we were going to be out for a while because of COVID-19. It was a bit challenging for the players because if you look at our session, we started very early this season in January, hoping that we were going to do better this season because we had so much to do this season. We had 15th. African Cup was going to be held. Also, we had Challenge Cup in SA. Of course, the big one was also Olympics. So we had so many games, and it's quite crazy for us. It has taken a tall stand on us as players. We have to really sit back and wait for what will happen next.
And when you're having a meeting with your team, or when you're talking about the various things that are supposed to happen now, going forward, now that the world is almost on a standstill, what are these things that you usually talk to each other about? Do you encourage each other? How do you motivate each other such that nobody gives up? Now, because we know that the Olympics are going to happen next year. And so have you thought of ways of ensuring that by the time 2021 is here, then you are ready to actually challenge for a shot at the Olympics?
Yeah, we always have time to talk to each other, get to know how we're faring, how we're working out, and hoping that when things get better, we'll go back as a team and work as we're used to. So in terms of lifestyle also has changed a bit because now there's a lot of straining, there's no working, there's no allowances, so mental strength is key. We might be fit, we might be doing our home workouts and feel that you're fit, but you're not. Like you're struggling because there are some players who cannot work at home at all. Like it's crazy for them. They need like to be monitored all the time. So it has taken a toll on many players, but we keep on encouraging each other to keep working and hoping for the best because at the end of the day, we have chosen sport and we love to do it. And like it's a challenge, like we love to live with it. The COVID-19 is here, and we just have to embrace whatever we have and work with it.
And let's talk about the allowances that you're talking about. That right now there's a sort of cash glut, there's a financial glut because most athletes like you, their sources of livelihoods have sort of paused for now. I don't know what you're doing yourself on a personal level. Are you doing your own side hustles right now? Do you plan on getting another alternative money-making venture just to cushion you against the financial impact of this virus?
Yeah, it's a bit crazy because you only get paid when you train. The allowance is just as you've said, and since March, that's the last time the players received their allowances. So from March to now, it's a bit crazy, and we support each other where we can. When we feel like you have something and one of your players are struggling, you just chip in. And our team managers have also been working, helping us out to see if they can reach those who are really struggling to get food stuff and all that. But still, it's crazy in terms of paying your rent and all that because there is no income. So it's very crazy.
Thank you, Phil. I hope the situation will change. Let's take a question from Makori and then we resume.
Philadelphia anajaribu kuangalia mwaka 2016 mkiwa kule jijini Rio, hamkushinda mechi yoyote katika kundi lenyu. Labda katika hiki kipindi sasa tukiongeza tena mwaka mmoja juu yake, manake mashindano ndio yameahirishwa hadi mwaka ujao, mwaka 2021. Kimekuwa ni kipindi cha aina gani na mmesoma nini kutoka Rio kwenda Tokyo?
Kwenda Rio 2016 hiyo ilikuwa ni challenge kwetu being that tulikuwa tuna meet teams kubwa. But I believe from 2016 to now, we work so hard. And there's a lot of improvement in the team. And I believe this season was going to be the best season going to sisi wachezaji. So we were going to do well. And I still believe that hata bado prepare as we wait for government to give us the directive of moving forward as an athlete, and I hope vitu zitakuwa poa na tutarudi mazoezi and we'll do well come 2021 because we've really learned a lot as a team. So, and 2016 I think we won only one match against Colombia.
Na ukiangalia katika hiki kipindi chote kumekuwa na corona, na corona imesababisha mashindano Olimpiki yameahirishwa kwa sababu yatafanyika sasa mwaka ujao. Wewe ukiangalia kimaoni yako, ninyi kama timu kiujumla mmekuwa mkifanyaje katika hiki kipindi chote, kwamba tuko katika hali ambayo tumefungiwa, tuwezi tukatangamana? Na Celeste alikuulizwa awali, wewe kama nahodha unafanyaje kuhakikisha kwamba wachezaji wako wako vizuri?
Tuko na WhatsApp group mali tunapata mazoezi yetu. Our fitness coach, strength and conditioning coach Sam Jogu anatutumia mazoezi na tunazifuatilia kwa makini, na pia kocha wetu pia sahi ana work na wale wenye mali weaknesses zako ziko kama ni kupass. So kuna technical team yetu imejigawa mali wanaweza, physio pia naangalia wale wako na majeraha wapata matibabu. So pia hii time imetusaidia pia ku understand penye life inaweza kuwa you can still work on your weaknesses at ukiwa home and get your strength pia ukiwa home, but I see intense venye si kwa kiwanja. So but tuna try venye tunaweza kwa wachezaji.
Alafu kuahirishwa kwa Olimpiki ni kama ni ndoto iliyoahirishwa, kimaoni yako imekuwaje? Ni ndoto iliyoahirishwa ama vipi?
Kidogo ilikuwa na changamoto kubwa juu hii ni kitu tulitarajia na tulieka matumaini yetu yote hapo kwa mazoezi na kila kitu, lakini pia kwa wachezaji ni kama utrain mali kuna jua na ukienda kucheza upate mvua inanyesha, so lazima uamue tu kuadjust na uishi na vitu venye iko saizi. But pia naona imetupatia pia nafasi kama wachezaji ku prepare a lot, na by that time we are getting to Olympics in 2020 I think tutakuwa in a better place. So I believe pia si mbaya, kwangu naona itatusaidia sana kwa wachezaji ku prepare because bado tuko na enough time.
Kila laheri mkienda Tokyo mwaka ujao.
Nashukuru, asante.
Kabla hujaenda Fila, ningependa tu kukuuliza, nakumbuka there's a day you and the rest of the team was coming back from a competition, and at the airport when I was there to receive you and a couple of other journalists and your family and friends, you made a very emotional speech at the airport, and you said that you come here to receive us and you sound excited and you act like you are really happy for us, but you don't know that back home our houses are locked, we don't have money to pay rent, we are struggling with our families, we don't have money because we don't get allowances. Has this situation improved, or is it now worse with COVID-19?
I can say it has really improved in terms of, but being now that the COVID-19 is here, we won't talk much about it because there's no allowances coming in for the players. But back then, I think there were so many changes which were made. We started receiving at least a little token from Kenya Rugby Union. And as an athlete, it's kind of crazy. Like when you go to compete outside, guys are watching you on TV, and coming back home, there's nothing in your pocket. Like nyumba yako imefungwa. So it's a bit crazy for athletes, and it's not a good picture. Being that you're going to represent your nation and coming back, you have nothing. Even your landlord will be like, and you're playing for the national team. Yeah. Can't even afford to pay your rent? So those are the challenges. Like. Took us a tall stand on the players, like hard just to say them, because those are the challenges they're facing on a daily basis. So I think Ministry of Sport and Kenya Rugby will improve on that, and I believe we'll be in a better place.
All right. Thank you so much, Philadelphia, for your candid interview with us and for sharing this time in your morning with us.
Okay, the Kenya Basketball Federation, as well as the Volleyball Federation, can now breathe a sigh of relief after the renovation program at the Nyayo National Stadium was shifted from the main arena to the indoor gymnasium. The arena that plays host to basketball league matches is slowly picking up a different face with seats fitted on the stands.
When it rains, it pours. The deplorable state of the roof at the Nyayo Indoor Arena that leaks, letting in water in torrents, only serving to hurt the hope of a win in a game. That is the condition that the Kenya Basketball Federation and other federations that hold their games at the indoor gymnasium have had to deal with in the past, with games having to be stopped or cancelled altogether. However, that could change with the arena receiving a facelift, so far the fan zone being fitted with seats.
Technically, I'm so much impressed by the way they've done the seating arrangements. All what now we are just looking for is the clock. The clock is where we have a problem. And if they can manage to make it, then we'll be good to go.
With the facelift at Nyayo National Stadium's main arena nearing completion, more needs to be done to the gymnasium that has no proper locker rooms for teams to change, poor lighting with a scoreboard that needs upgrading.
When this thing, Corona, gets away, I think we'll be in a position to enjoy the basketball game where we had left it.
The facility has once hosted international events, the latest being the Afro Basketball pre-qualifying tournament that Kenya came out top. It was the first time Kenya was hosting a major competition since 1993. The arena could not handle the number of fans, with Kenya getting away with a near ban for flouting crowd control procedures.
Most of our players and fans come from within the area, so it's very easy and accessible as compared to Kasarani. And two teams and our players are used to playing and training at Nyayo as compared to Kasarani. So that's the more advantages. And also with Nyayo, it's easier being filled as compared to Kasarani.
Renovations will serve to impact positively on Kenya's performance in international competitions. Most accomplished Kenyan basketball players, among them Tyler Okari, and America-based duo of Cliff Gatonye and Peter Gikanya, who were molded by the not-so-up-to-par facility. Meanwhile, the Kenya Basketball Federation League that is yet to begin this season is hoping for a September return in a bid to conform to the world governing body FIBA calendar. The swimming pool area at the Nyayo National Stadium is set to be completed in the coming weeks, with seats also fitted at the handball and volleyball courts.
And staying with Nyayo, the National Stadium is nearing completion, with the stadium set to be handed over to Sports Kenya. Meanwhile, a virtual 2,000 meters partnership race between Norwegian and Kenyan athletes was at the venue, and also even as the country plans to host the World Continental Tour as the first international event on the grounds in September.
Renovation works at the Nyayo National Stadium will soon be concluded, with final touches remaining. Plastic seats have finally been installed all around the stadium that may soon be open for competitions after being closed 3 years ago.
They will still have to improve the grass, but we wanted to finish first of all the hardware, and then we'll come into the soft issues of the grass. But we are, as you can see, we have tried to maintain as is, but half that this works will now embark on the grass to make sure that it is to the required standards.
As you can see, we're in a very good place right now, right? But there are finishing touches that need to be done, painting that needs to be done. As soon as that is done, then it will be handed over to Sports Kenya.
And with the COVID-19 pandemic halting sports globally, athletes from Rongai Athletics Club had a feel of the stadium in preparation for a memorial run. The athletes, who include World 1500 meters champion Timothy Cheruiyot, Commonwealth Games champion Elijah Manangoi, and 800 meters runner Edwin Meli, will compete against the Norwegian Ingebrigtsen brothers in a virtual race dubbed Mori Plant Memorial Race on June 11th. The 2,000 meters run was organized to pay tribute to legendary Australian athlete Mori Plant, who passed away in January this year, while also supporting the fight against COVID-19.
Ndoto yangu ni kufocus kwa mazoezi, nirudi form kama 2018-2019, na matarajio yangu hapo mbeleni niende Olympics.
We are part of the bandwagon. We are trying to get our shape back so that we can perform to our best in August and the month preceding August.
The winner of the run will be the team with the best overall time for 3 runners, with the individual time set to count as well. This is a boost to Manangoi, who is returning from injury and hitting the tracks now. He has his sights focused on winning a medal at the postponed Japan Olympics.
That is the only medal that I don't have, the Olympic medal. So that is my major factor in my life. So I think I'm still focusing for Olympics next year. It's not far. So this is my my first journey for Olympics.
With Kenya set to host the World Continental Tour Nairobi leg on the 26th of September, plans are underway to ensure Nyayo Stadium will be used if Kasarani Stadium will not be ready for the event.
Now time has come. Time has come where we feel that there could be light at the end of the tunnel.
We will also be aware of the consequences in case the pandemic is still there. So we want to find different ways of hosting this event, even if the problem is still there.
The race will be the first international major event at the Nyayo National Stadium since its closure in 2017.
Haya, sasa sijui Makori, hii hali ya kukarabati uwanja wa taifa wa Nyayo ndio utamaliza matatizo yake na changamoto zake au?
Ndo kwa kiasi fulani, unajua imekuwa ni jambo ambalo limesubiriwa kwa muda mrefu. Miaka 3 baadaye ndio uwanja unakamilika kukarabatiwa. Alafu kile kinafurahisha na kuridhisha zaidi ni kwamba umesimikwa viti kote na uwanja ambao una uwezo wa kubeba mashabiki takriban 30,000. Alafu katika ligi kuu ya kandanda ya Kenya kumekuwa na mahangaiko. Unakuta hakuna mechi inayopigwa katika uwanja wa Nyayo kwa sababu ya kufunga kwake ukarabatiwa. Sasa mechi nyingi zinapigwa katika uwanja wa Kenyatta kaunti ya Machakos. Unakuta kuna mechi 3 kwa siku moja. Labda mechi ya saa 5, mechi ya saa 7 na mechi ya saa 10. Ni jambo ambalo kwa kweli linasikitisha, lakini kwa sasa ikiwa kwamba ukarabati wake umetamatika na kila kitu kiko shwari, najaribu kufikiria hivi kwamba ile mechi kubwa kabisa huku Kenya kati ya mashemeji Gor Mahia na AFC Leopards sasa inapigwa katika uwanja wa taifa wa Nyayo, uwanja ambao karibu wake na jiji unafurahisha. Manake mashabiki wengi utembea kwenda katika uwanja wa Nyayo na hata kutoka Nyayo kurudi kuja kazini. Mimi wakati kuna mechi Nyayo huwa siingoji gari na kuja mguu, manake wamefunga barabara wale mashabiki. Ukingoja gari hautakuwa na taarifa saa 1. Lakini ukaribu wake ndio unafurahisha zaidi. Mashabiki watajaa Nyayo. Angalia samawati wamekaa upande huu, hawa ni mashabiki wa Ingwe. Kijani kibichi wamekaa upande huu, hawa ni mashabiki wa Kogalo. Itafurahisha asilimia kubwa. Na huku kujengwa kwa viwanja katika mikiki leo majira ya saa 6 dhuhuri, nitakuwa naangazia kwamba tuna viwanja sasa, lakini upande wa kukuza vipaji itakuwaje? Tuna akademia hapa Kenya, tuna miundo mbinu ya kuhakikisha kwamba wale wachezaji wanaoibuka, labda wale wanaotoka katika mashindano ya shule za upili, wanawekwa mahali fulani katika kiasi kwamba sasa tunawakuza waendelee. Maana unakuta kuna vipaji katika mashindano ya shule za upili, lakini baada ya kidato cha 4 unakuta ule mchezaji alikuwa ni mzuri lakini hana kule mahali anakwenda, na kwa kwamba kile kipaji chake kinapotelea tu akiwa mitaani. Lakini kwa kiasi fulani serikali imepiga hatua kubwa katika ukarabati na kujenga viwanja. Na katika hiyo taarifa ambayo imefanywa na Brian Otwal, ilo shindano la virtual lilikwisha kufanyika, maana ilikuwa ni awali na lilifanyika. Hawa mabingwa wetu akina Elijah Manangoi, akina Timothy Cheruiyot walishinda na wale jamaa kutoka Norway, lakini haina neno, ni katika hali ya kujiandaa kurejea kwa mashindano.
Asante Makori. I mean, Celestine, Nyayo is quite convenient and people have a special attachment to the stadium.
It's actually my second best stadium in Nairobi, my first being City Stadium, which has been stalled for the last 6 years, which is very bad. And one thing that really struck me when I heard about the stadium renovations and when I actually went to Nyayo Stadium to actually view everything that's gone out is the speed with which the government and the sports ministry actually swung into action and fixed that stadium. It's been closed for the last 4 years. 4 years is a long time for football, and it's one of the biggest stadiums because it's the second biggest after Kasarani. And you can imagine if it's closed for all those years, then it means that so many athletes are suffering because there's a fixture glut, which means that we have to use the available stadiums which are substandard, and it was putting a lot of pressure on the players. I like the fact that the government actually, even during the COVID-19 issue, they actually came in and said, this stadium has got to be complete, and they went ahead and they did it. The fact that they did that is, for me, is something that needs to be commended.
Okay.
Whether or not those facilities will last, and whether we have used good quality material, that is something that we will have to
But let's get it back in order. Now let's bring in Fidel Matthew. Fidel, good morning and welcome to your world.
Good morning, good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Karibu. Now, many know you as an actor, as a radio producer, but here we also know you as a big basketball player. Nyayo coming back to shape, that's good news for you.
That's good news for us. I mean, most of the time we have to look for seats or somewhere to sit when we want to witness the games. Last year we had, last season I should say, we had an exciting finals between the Ulinzi Warriors and Nairobi City Thunder. and most of the fans couldn't find a place to sit. We saw what happened during the Afro Basketball Championships as well. It was packed to capacity at some point, as Otwal mentioned in his piece. We almost didn't have a finals taking place between Kenya and South Sudan. So this is a welcome respite for Kenyan basketball.
Because obviously for the standards of our sports to improve, you also need good facilities.
Yes. I mean, you know, every time I joke about this, but it's really not a joke. We see teams competing at the Olympics. We see Nigeria has qualified for what was supposed to be this year's Olympics. So they're playing in next year in Japan. And when you look at the Kenyan team and what we're used to in terms of facilities, in terms of our preparation, and we see what other teams are playing in the Olympics and tournaments like the World Cup, we have got a long way to go. With proper facilities, it's certainly something that can help our team improve and compete at a world stage.
Okay, now Fidel, I know Celestine has got a question for you, but just before that, basketball is a high contact game. What does that mean in terms of Corona? What have you been up to?
It's crazy. At the moment, I know local players maybe are doing individual workouts to just try and keep in shape. But in terms of other leagues and in terms of more organized leagues, what people are doing, they're doing testing. And as long as you've passed the test and you're not ill or have the symptoms for COVID-19, you're put in a complex and you can play. And that's what the NBA is doing in Orlando. And next month, on the 31st, they're planning to have 16 teams participating in a league format and also the playoffs. And they'll have to quarantine everyone into one place, test the players. If a player is tested positive, they'll be sent home. So I think it's possible, it can be done, but individual players at the moment locally are working out and trying to stay fit.
Yeah, and Fidel, just back to the stadium issue. I know that you've seen the works that have gone on at Nyayo Stadium, the indoor arena. It looks really beautiful. But I also know that basketball is one of the sporting disciplines that has been really neglected in terms of player development and whatnot. How do you feel about the fact that this indoor arena there's only 2 indoor arenas in Nairobi? Do you think that it disadvantages other basketballers from outside of the region?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, we for example, Western Kenya is a talent pool for basketball and most sporting activities in this country, including football. So if you don't have facilities, we don't have enough players coming up from these regions to play this beautiful game that we love. That being said, Kenyans, as we know, we have that irrepressible spirit. So people are making the best of a worse situation and trying their best to do what they can to be better players. But at the same time, I feel the government, the federation should work together in tandem and make sure there are facilities all over the country. In Mombasa, we have the KPA gym. I think it's not enough to have just that one facility in the Mombasa, in the coast region, rather. As Mombasa, as we all know, is one of the hotbeds for basketball in this country.
So let's drop down and take a question from Makori before we come back to you, Fidel.
Fidel, mimi ni kando na mpira kikapu. Wewe ni shabiki mkubwa wa Liverpool. Halafu Arsenal ndio wamefanya mambo yao, wangepunguza lile pengo likiwa ni alama 3 tu.
Utanisamehe, swali yangu labda si up to par.
Sema kizungu, sema kizungu.
I will say this. During this COVID-19 period, we've been told about the new normal. As more things change, they stay the same. Arsenal has still remained the same. They are consistent in their failure, and this is just friendly banter. No offense to any Arsenal fan.
Lakini ni subira miaka 30. 30 years later ndo mnachukua kikombe.
Well, unajua Manchester United wakiwa na Alex Ferguson walikaa miaka 27 kabla washinde league. So, I mean, maybe this is the start of many to come. So we have 6 Champions Leagues trophies. We'll have our 19th league trophy maybe in a couple of weeks. What do you know? You know, this might be the first of many to come.
Aya, Warungu sasa na Celeste endeleeni hapa studio.
Asante. Now, Fidel, it's unfair on our viewers. We have very stringent editorial guidelines at the Nation Media Group, which makes we have to stay neutral. So you cannot have 3 Liverpool fans crowding out.
I see where you're going.
So Fidel, what are you most looking forward to when sports fully reopens?
I mean, everyone wants sports to come back, but we also want sports to come back in a safe environment for the players as well as the fans. And what we've been seeing of late with the English Premier League resuming on Wednesday and La Liga having been on, as well as the Bundesliga, which is live on NTV, is the fact that we're missing that atmosphere from the fans. The fans bring something special to the game. We call them the 12th man. But that being said, sports is a morale booster at the moment. This year, many people have said, let's cancel 2020. But I think we should all be positive, and the return of sports gradually and the way it's coming back. We're seeing the NBA coming back next month on the 31st. It's a welcome respite. And I think what this has shown people is never take anything for granted. I used to miss some games. Now I think I'll be watching all the games, including Reading versus West Brom, FC Leopards, Chemelin. You never know what will happen tomorrow.
So, Fidel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have a good day and keep safe. Now, sports activities that have been in limbo since Uganda went into lockdown in March are on the verge of getting a lease of life. This after the National Council of Sports came up with a standard operating procedure for the reopening of the subsector. The National COVID-19 Task Force will have to pass National Council of Sports standard operating procedures before an actual date is put on the resumption of sports activities in Uganda.
National COVID-19 Task Force will have to approve the National Council of Sports standard operating procedures before an actual date is put on the resumption of sports activities in Uganda. National Council of Sports General Secretary Dr. Patrick Bernard Ogwell says the draft procedures will soon be forwarded to the Minister of Education and Sports. The minister, who also doubles as the First Lady, will then hand over the document to the National Task Force.
Definitely the National Task Force will be able to look at it. And at an appointed time, government will be able to reopen. Without presentation of the standard operation procedures, I can assure you no sports activity will take place.
The guidelines seek to align the sports subsector with the general COVID-19 guidelines,
ensuring that in addressing ourselves to the safety mechanisms, we also use the acceptable equipments.
The sports guidelines will also form part of the general standard operating procedures for the reopening of schools by the Ministry of Education and Sports.
You note when schools reopen, they may also want to participate in sport. Now, under what framework would they be allowed to do business?
Ogwell says individual federations will have to come up with their own guidelines based on the General National Council of Sports guidelines.
All the issues raised in this document are really addressed for all of us.
He hopes that the sports subsector is able to resume activities in July to allow local athletes to get back in shape ahead of what is claimed to be a packed international sports calendar. The 51 sports federations in Uganda have been placed in 3 categories of low, medium and high-risk COVID-19 transmission sports. The medium-risk sports total 20 and include, among others, cricket, tennis and volleyball. The low-risk sports are 18, with golf, motorsports, swimming and athletics inclusive. Sam Poza, NTV.
Okay, so we are joined by, we stay in Uganda, where we will be speaking to Robert Madoi, who's the NTV sports editor, in a moment. We are also joined by Edith, who is the Malkia Strikers player, as well as Eunice Sum, who is the former 800 meters world champion. But first to Kampala. Now, Robert, good morning and welcome to your world.
Good morning.
Yeah, now back to your...
Good to have...
Yeah, welcome.
Sorry?
I'm saying, first of all,
Thank you very much.
Reference to your story there about the procedures for reopening sports in Uganda. Is everyone playing ball in the sector?
Maybe just to offer a little bit of context, the country really started shutting down around March 18th. That's when the president announced, this raft of restrictive measures. They came into place. We saw the closing of schools. We saw churches going under lock and key, and sports was one of the activities that was affected. The reasoning, of course, was that most of these sporting disciplines tend to get to gather people together, and that predisposes people to being afflicted by this dreadful virus, which we're still learning to live with. So that's when sports went under lockdown. The president time and again has been asked, when are you going to remove, these restrictive measures on sport? And his response to that has always been that sports can wait. Actually, he came up with a neat dichotomy recently of the economy, where he said Uganda has the real economy and also there is the leisure economy. So he put sport in the leisure economy, and this rubbed, stakeholders quite the wrong way. They said, you cannot liken sport to, for instance, something like going to the bar, because sport is actually an industry, and it contributes greatly to the country's economy. Because, for instance, if a team from Kenya is coming to play here in Uganda, you're going to have this entourage of people who are going to come in with money to spend, and at the end of it, you're going to class these people as tourists. Yet, actually, they came on the ticket of sport. If Uganda is flying a team to Tanzania to play, probably they're going to use Uganda Airlines, and they're going to be contributing to the economy in one way or the other. So they said people came up, they were up in arms against, that categorization.
And so, Robert,
I think that's what informed.
So,
yes?
as we speak, do we have a date when things will open up, sporting world?
No, we do not have a date. These are baby steps that have been taken by the National Council of Sports. They've asked the 51 federations to whom they are responsible for. They have asked them. These 51 federations are entrusted to the care of National Council of Sports. They have asked them to send their SOPs, because the document that they circulated was broad document. It sort of offers them guidelines as to how they can go about safeguarding not just the participants, but perhaps at one point in time when the funds also get back, how do you safeguard them? Okay. So they have asked those 51 federations. First of all, they have categorized the 51 federations into their risk classifications that they have come up with. One which is low risk, another which is medium risk, and the high risk.
Okay.
And they've lumped each of those 51 federations into those broad categories that I've just talked about.
Okay.
So each of them, you have a different sort of requirement that is expected of you.
Okay.
For instance, if you're a low-risk sport like golf, the burden of you proving that you cannot predispose people to this dreadful virus is less than if you're a high-risk sport like rugby or football, which is the most watched sport here in Uganda. So
okay.
it's mainly that they've asked them. They haven't put a timeline to it.
Oh, okay.
Really. They're just taking baby steps.
Robert Madoi, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us this update from Kampala in Uganda. We will stay tuned to see what happens and how soon you're able to reopen the sector. So thank you so much. Have a good day and keep safe. Now, we are also joined by Eunice Sum, 800 meters world champion in 2013. And Makori, you get to speak to the champion.
Itakuwa starehe ni mlete ndani Eunice Sum. Eunice Sum, katika hiki kipindi cha corona, mazoezi yako yamekuaje?
Asante sana Makori, na asante pia kwa kunikaribisha kwa hiki kipindi. Nasema tu mazoezi imekuwa mzuri, na ingawa tu kiakili kidogo unasumbuka sababu huwezi ukajua lengo aswa ni nini. Juu tuna train sahi, hatujui kama kweli itafunguka, but tumekuwa tukitrain ya.
Alafu nilikuona mahali fulani uko na yule mtoto wako, unafanya nini kwa sasa?
Saizi nilichukua time kidogo kukaa na familia. At least sahii ninakaa na yeye, namsaidia kwa homework na kidogo tujuane na familia, maana hiyo miaka tumepita kidogo, nimekuwa kambi na akikuwa shule. So sahii afadhali niko na yeye kidogo, nimsaidie mambo ya shule na saidi kumsaidia. Unajua yeye ni msichana and she's almost a teenager, so it is good to stay with her enough time with us.
Alafu ukiangalia katika taaluma yako ya riadha, umeshinda ubingwa wa dunia kule Moscow, Urusi mwaka 2013, ukaja mwaka 2014 ukashinda ubingwa wa Afrika huko Morocco, ukashinda Jumuiya ya Madola kule Glasgow, Scotland. Ile medali ambayo huna katika taaluma yako ni medali ya Olimpiki, na Olimpiki ndio imeahirishwa. Mwanzo umepokeaje kuahirishwa kwa Olimpiki?
Kidogo imenisaidia, maana sasa nafanya physical strength which I think singeweza kufanya before the Olympics. So nilifurahia, sasa niko na enough time ya kutrain well because I really need that an Olympic medal.
Ndoto yako ni ipi katika mashindano ya Olimpiki ya mwaka ujao?
Mi nataka ni win a medal, na mwanzo unajua 800 ni ndio yenye iko tricky sana. So lengo langu kuu ni kuingia hata kwa final, alafu nitang'ang'ana kuwin a medal.
Katika hiyo kushinda medali Olimpiki tu ndio huna, na katika ukiangalia katika huu msimu wa corona kumekuwa wanariadha wengi wanasaidiwa hapa na pale, serikali imekuwa ikitoa msaada hapa na pale. Labda wewe kivyako, huu msimu wa corona katika kule kusaidiana umekuonaje?
Nimeona ni mzuri, maana kuna wale athletes ambao wanategemea kukaa kwa kambi, na sasa hivi unajua kambi ilifungwa. So nilifurahia kwanza the initiative which the AK took, even the government wakasaidia wale wenye wajiwezi. That one was a very good initiative.
Alafu ukiangalia UNISOM, kuna wanariadha wengi ambao wameathirika kwa njia moja ama nyingine kwa sababu ya hili janga la corona. Kama wale wa under 20, kuna wale ambao walikuwa washiriki huu mwaka, ikifika mwaka ujao labda miaka yao itakuwa imepita. Nini ushauri wako kwao?
I think the IAAF and the whole federation, they should have to sit down and see kama watawapea one last chance, because this was supposed to be their last year in their youth. So I think they should consider that, even for those people like when walikuwa qualify for the Olympics. So because you know kuna hii qualification standard, so I think they should have to look at that, because like sio muda imeisha ya kuqualify. So I think they should be given another chance, maybe to represent their country and to participate in the Olympics.
Alafu Sumu, mbali na kushindana katika mashindano mbio za mita 800, labda una ndoto ya siku moja kwenda marathon?
This year nilikuwa nimeongea na coach wangu nikapanga kukimbia 1500, of which it was a position maybe kwenda long distance. So I still want to represent Kenya maybe in 2 championship, Olympics and the World Championship in the track, and then I see maybe I'll run the road races.
Eunice, pia mwenzangu hapa Celeste yuko na swali kwako.
Yeah, Eunice, it would be a great disservice to our viewers and the rest of the athletics lovers if we wouldn't talk about doping in the country and in regards to athletics, in Kenyan athletics. Right before the coronavirus pandemic happened, we saw a few new cases being reported about people who are actually using performance-enhancing drugs. And right now, over the last 3 months, I'm sure that the World Anti-Doping Agency, has not been very aggressive or proactive in doing the tests because of social distance measures and all those containment procedures. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, because this is the whole world is shining a spotlight on Kenya, especially now that we're heading into an Olympics year, and everyone is looking to find out how we're going to deal with these doping manners. What are your thoughts on that?
I still encourage my fellow athletes to run clean, because now I know it's a challenge for the officers for doping to maybe visit some people, but I've been for the last 1 month wamekuwa kuja kunifanyia doping. So I don't think if we follow these rules, and I encourage athletes let's run clean, because this doping, it has challenges, it has side effects. So I think if someone uses doping, uses drug enhances drugs. So I think even in future they will have a lot of challenges.
And what is this one thing that you're really looking forward to do once the sporting industry is now back in full operation?
I'm looking forward to running again and to really running strong, because I've been training all along. So there's no time like nimesema ni break for training. So I think I'm ready now even for running, and I'm looking forward for that. Looking forward to putting on the spikes again.
Thank you so much, Eunice, for your very candid interview with us. Thank you for sparing your morning to have with us.
Eunice, don't go yet. We have a couple of questions before you go. Tulia kidogo kabla hujarudi kwa mazoezi.
Niko.
Sawa. Tutarudi baada ya muda mfupi kidogo, lakini kwanza mapumziko mafupi, alafu tutarejea na kipindi cha Your World. Okay, so we continue our conversation with Eunice Sum in a moment. But first of all, as you know, food and diet go hand in hand with sport. So we noticed that a lot of you have been learning new recipes during this pandemic season. New delicacies are being served on your table. And we wanted to be part of that journey. So we partnered with pishi.co.ke to bring you a weekly segment called #PishiHomeChef. Now, here's how it works. All you need to do is cook a meal, any meal, or a meal that we'll be giving you as a challenge. Record a video or take photos of it, post it on any social media using the #PishiHomeChef. And if we like what you bake, well, you could become the Pishi Home Chef of the week. This week's challenge is a Father's Day challenge, a tribute to father. So
using the available materials for each and every one of us, so it has really interrupted our sporting activities.
Okay, Makori, my colleague, has a question for you as well.
Edith, huu msimu kocha mkuu Paulo Bitoka amekuwa akiwafanyaje kwamba mnaendelea na mazoezi?
Kuna group ya WhatsApp ambayo ilikreatiwa, iko na wachezaji wote wenye wako kwenye Malkia Strikers. So sisi utrain na unachukua video ya vile unatrain, kisha tunatuma kwenye WhatsApp. Kocha anaweza kuadvise what to do about how to train. So hapo ndio tunajaribu ku build that teamwork together. Tuna train, kila mtu anatuma video yake na unarekebisha, au kocha anatuambia you have to do this and this.
Kimaoni yako umeathirika kivipi kibinafsi kama wewe Edith?
Kwa upande wangu nimeathirika tu kwa kutopata wakati mwafaka wa kutrain, kwa sababu facilities uwanja imekuwa ngumu kwa access.
Alafu ukiangalia ndo Olimpiki imeahirishwa. Kimaoni yako hii ni kama ndoto iliyoahirishwa ama inakuaje?
Kuahirishwa kwa Olimpiki kwa upande mmoja kama advantage kwetu, kwa maana tutapata wakati mwafaka wa kuweza kutrain. Wale ambao hawangeweza kujoin team, kama tuseme mchezaji atoka ambaye alipata majeraha, at least atapata time ya kurecover na kuweza kujiunga na team tena. Kwa hivyo imeweza kusaidia kwa upande mmoja.
Ukiangalia pia katika hapo kwa Olimpiki, mlipata ile tiketi kule wakati mmeshinda kule Cameroon. Ile tiketi mlipata katika kipindi ambacho kiukweli ilikuwa ni mechi ya finali. Ile mechi unaikumbukaje, ilikuwa ni mechi aina gani kimaoni yako?
Mechi dhidi yetu na Cameroon ndio ilikuwa mechi ya maana zaidi kudetermine nani atapata tiketi moja ambayo ilikuwa imeachiwa Afrika kwenye Olimpiki. na hiyo mechi ilikuwa ngumu zaidi kwa zote, kwa sababu sisi tulikuwa tunahitaji kushinda, Cameroon pia walikuwa wanahitaji kushinda. Kwa hivyo lazima tungetia bidii zetu zote. Kenya ilikuwa imekaa miaka 16 bila kujiunga na Olimpiki. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa lazima tufanye juu chini ili tuweze kushinda. Ilikuwa mechi ngumu na yenye umuhimu zaidi kwa sisi sote. Sababu ukiona miaka 4 kutoka sasa, wachezaji wengi kwenye national team maybe hawatakuwa bado kwenye hiyo team. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa wakati wao ambao wangeweza kupata chance kwenda kwa Olimpiki. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa lazima tucheze kufa kupona.
Kule kuqualify tu kupata tiketi ya kwenda Olimpiki imechukua miaka sasa, itakuwa ni zaidi ya 15. Katika kipindi chote Kenya haijakuwa katika mashindano ya Olimpiki. Mnataka kudhihirishia ulimwengu nini?
Ningependa kuambia ulimwengu ya kwamba timu ya Kenya wakati huu tukienda kwenye Olimpiki hatutakuwa kama kawaida kwenda kuparticipate. We are going to compete with our teammates na tuna hope ya kwamba tunaenda kushinda mechi kule. Hatutakuwa kama kawaida tumeenda kuparticipate, na tunaenda kubring a change kwa Olimpiki this time round.
Ile kundi lenyu katika Olimpiki sio kundi rahisi. Unalionaje?
Si kundi rahisi, lakini hakuna kitu hakiwezekani. Timu zile tuko nazo kwenye group ni timu ngumu, tumecheza nazo hapo mbeleni na ni timu zimeweza kutushinda, but tunajua kwamba tunaweza enda back to our drawing board, tuweze kuona makosa ile tulifanya, tuweze kurekebisha ili tutakapokutana na hizo timu tena hazitatuona kama vile tulikuwa. Tutakuwa tumebadilika na tunaweza kucheza vizuri zaidi.
Nakumbuka wakati mmoja kule Mombasa mlikutana na Rais wa Jamhuri Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na ndio mmepata tiketi ya kuiwakilisha si Kenya tu, bara Afrika katika Olimpiki. Kule kukutana tu na rais, kuna motisha gani kimaoni yako?
Kukutana na rais wa nchi hiyo inaonyesha kwanza sisi kama volleyballers, rais anatujali na anatupenda, anatutakia mema. Kwa hivyo ilitupa motisha zaidi ya kwamba tukiweza kuachieve zaidi tunainua jina la nchi na rais anaweza kufurahi. Pia ilitupa motisha kwa kuwa rais aliweza kutoa pesa na kusema kwamba tukitaka kwenda kutrain kule nje ili tuweze kuimarisha michezo yetu katika Olimpiki tutapewa ruhusa na tutapewa hiyo support. Kwa hivyo hiyo ilitupa motisha zaidi.
Kwa sasa Edith anafanya nini?
Nilikuwa tayari nataka kwenda zoezi la asubuhi, but kwa sababu ya interview ilibidi niweze kuchelewa kidogo, but nikimaliza hapa naenda zoezi.
Mbali na zoezi huo unafanya nini? Siku yako inakaaje?
Kwa saizi ni kushinda tu kwenye nyumba, hakuna kwenda mahali, lakini ilikuwa ni kama haingekuwa ni corona nilikuwa nafaa kuwa kwenye attachment, lakini sasa juu ya corona kila kitu kilisitishwa. Kwa hivyo ni kushinda tu nyumbani, kutrain na kukaa kwa nyumba.
Celeste, pia una swali kwa Edith?
Yes, asante sana Edith. Kama vile unavyoniona nimevaa ile jazi ambayo ulikuwa umevalia hiyo siku ambayo mlipoteza hiyo mechi against Cameroon. Na hapo ndio swali yangu inatokelezea sasa. Bana nataka kujua, I'd like to know Kenya's dominance in Africa in terms of the African queens is being threatened by newbies like Cameroon, and we saw what happened 4 years ago and we missed the Olympic ticket. I don't know, are you guys, does it bother you first of all, and are you planning to do something about it so that we remain as the African queens?
Sijakupata vizuri, kama naweza kuwa clarified kiasi.
Na maanisha kwamba now that Kenya's dominance in terms of volleyball in the continent, we were once African champions. Everyone knew that Kenya is a force to reckon with in Africa in terms of volleyball. But over the last few years, that has been threatened by newbies like Cameroon and mainstay teams like Egypt. I don't know if that bothers you, and are you planning to do anything about it?
Yeah, for the recent years, Kenya, we have been struggling to win against Cameroon and even Egypt. I must say teams have improved. Many countries are now putting more effort into their sports. And for example, if I take an example of Cameroon, their government has really put a lot into them. They are going to train outside their country. They are going like in Europe, in Brazil, for quite a period of time to train. So when you come to meet them, you get them, they have a better experience compared to us who just train here in Kenya at Kasarani, a limited facility. Maybe sometimes you find that there are other events at Kasarani, you have to cut short your training session. That has affected us in one way or another, because when we go to play against Cameroon, we might find them they are a step ahead of us. That makes us struggle. But with whatever we have to do our best, because we can't say we'll be like Cameroon. Our governments are different, the facilities are different, so we have to work with what we have.
Thank you very much, Eunice. Let's go downstairs to Makori. He's got one more question for you.
Edith, moja hii ya mwisho hii kumalizia. Umesema kwamba kama si corona ungekuwa katika attachment. Hebu yani uifafanue kidogo tu tuelewe kwamba ni attachment gani.
Okay, apart from kucheza volleyball, nilikuwa mwanafunzi katika chuo kikuu cha Mount Kenya. Na nilikuwa nimemaliza masomo yangu, ile ilikuwa nimesalia tu ni attachment peke yake, na timu yangu ya KCB ilikuwa imeniahidi kunipa attachment. So before corona ikuje nilikuwa nishawasilisha barua zangu, lakini juu ya corona kila kitu kilisitishwa.
Hapo kila laheri basi mkienda Olimpiki mwaka ujao.
Asante.
Edith, thank you very much indeed, and do us proud when Tokyo comes along. Asante sana, kila laheri. Now,
thank you very much.
Eunice, welcome back to the discussion. And I have a
thank you so much.
My question to you is that you've been in the field for quite a while, but every year, every day, there are new ones coming up. What is your advice to people who look up to you and would like to walk or run in your shoes?
Yeah, that's true. You know, some newcomers are coming up each and every year. So I just want to encourage them that, you know, we cannot run for so long. Yeah, we had some people like Chelimo. So I think we should encourage the young ones, and I have some who we train together, so, and they are also training for 800. So I think in the near future you will also see them competing.
And we know that athletics is not just physical sport. There's also the mental aspect involved in it. And now everything has been scattered. The whole schedule has been disrupted. How are you taking care of your mental health?
At first it was a bit difficult for me, but I had to adjust myself and to remain main focus even in training. It was difficult, like to train alone. And you know me, I've been used to train in groups, training with my pacemaker. Now, like everyone is training alone, like the way Edith had said. So it's a bit difficult, but I think with time we have managed to come out of it, and we are training. And as you are aware that there is this continental which might come to Kenya, so my mind is a bit focused to that and see how things are going to work.
Mm-hmm. And how long before we see you move out of the track and onto the ground? Are we likely to see you in action in a marathon anytime this decade?
In the coming years, maybe. I've been running in the track now for almost maybe 8 years, and hopefully maybe in the next 4 years there, I'll maybe switch my gears to the road races now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eunice. Maybe my colleague Joseph has got more questions for you.
Makori kwako. Oh. Right. So Eunice, what is your first assignment in terms of competitive sport right now as we speak?
I'm preparing. You know, there's this Continental Cup which is coming to Nairobi. So it was supposed to be May, which I was entered, but it was cancelled because of this virus. So hopefully, when it comes to Kenya, maybe I will start running there, and maybe some few Diamond Leagues.
Okay.
Coming before the end of the season, yeah.
Thank you. Before you go, Bakori wants to say something to you.
So, huyu mwanao labda ataja kuwa kama Sumu mwingine miaka ijayo, ama unaonaje? Unamuonaje kitanta?
Naona anaweza nishikilia, maana nikikimbia hata mazoezi huwa ananifuata karibu kilomita 5, so nimeona anaweza kuwa mkimbiaji. Yeah.
Asante sana kwa kutenga muda wako kusema nasi, na kila laheri katika mazoezi yako na kujiandaa kupata tiketi ya kwenda Olimpiki na hata kuendea medali ya Olimpiki, manake ndo huna.
Asante Michael.
Tashukuru.
Thank you so much. Asante.
Ndo sasa tumepiga hapa. Unajua mimi nikiwa hapa 5th floor ni Estadio, naita Estadio. Na hii 5th floor huwa ni chumba cha habari tu, ni newsroom kwa kimombo mombo. Sasa kutoka Estadio Aida Waringa ambaye ni mwenzangu katika Sports Desk, iko pembeni tu hapa mahali nipo, alisema na Ian Rush ambaye alikuwa ni mshambulizi hatari kubwa wa mabingwa watarajiwa wa ligi kuu ya kandanda ya England, lakini mahojiano yatakuwa yanakuja siku ya Jumamosi, lakini angalia ila kwa kwaje. Ka promo.
Oh, there's Rush in there. Rush! Goal! Ian Rush!
I'm sure these players, when they play Everton, when they play Crystal Palace, when they play Manchester City, the next 3 games, they will definitely be up for it because it's been too long since Liverpool won the league.
Origi there, Belgian, yes, but of course with Kenyan roots. Your thoughts on the player?
Ndo bomba la mahojiano tutakuwa nayapata moja kwa moja hapa NTV. Itakuwa ni siku ya Jumamosi, naye Aida Waringa alisema naye kwa mapana na marefu, akamuuliza mambo mengi kuhusu hata kijana ambaye ana asili ya Kikenya Divock Origi, ambaye kiukweli alichangia asilimia kubwa kwa Liverpool kuliwahi taji la 6 la ligi ya mabingwa Ulaya katika msimu ambao ulipita. Manake msimu huu hawatulitetea wako nje, tayari walitemwa na Atletico Madrid. Yoshua Makori mimi kutoka hapa na mega hadi kule juu. Ya juu hii nafaa niweke ya kichwa, manake wako juu yangu ndo kule kwa studio.
Asante sana Makori, na hasa kwa kunikaribisha katika uwanja huu wa utangazaji wa sports. Unajua mimi ni mama yangu wengine, lakini kidogo leo na walimu wawili, kuna Celestine hapa, kuna Makori. So Celestine, it's been a great joy to have you from our Daily Nation Sports Desk.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and we'll be back on Monday with a bit of sporting activities. That's our workout at 6:30 a.m. To 7 a.m. and then your world kicks off with Gladys Gachanja on this hot seat. So wishing you a really good weekend, keep safe, and on behalf of my colleagues here at NTV, my co-announcers, in advance, happy Father's Day to all fathers. Makori, yes to you, happy Father's Day. And those to be as well. So it's really a joy. Stay safe, have a good weekend. Asanteni sana.